And welcome back to the Meadow Wellbeing kitchen. We're not doing cheese curry tonight, no cheese. Tonight we are doing a very simple stew. Probably going to use a bit of lentils, so it's going to be a lentil stew. So basically the same as normal. I've just grabbed what I had in my fridge, so you can use whatever veg you like. So I'm going for some sprouts, I've got some green beans, I've got some celery, I've got some carrots, I've got cabbage, got some leeks, got a turnip, an onion, and then I'm going to cook it with some potatoes. So we're going to be doing, like, I don't know, probably mashed potato to go with it, and some amazing juggling skills. So we'll be using probably some herbs and spices. I'll have some, I think I've got some rosemary and some thyme in my fridge, so I'm going to be using that. And in a minute, as I did last time, if you watched the last video, using my knives to chop all this stuff up, make it funky. The first thing I'm going to do though, as always, is wash the old hands, make sure that they are clean. Done them once already, but you know, better to be safe than sorry, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'll come back to you in about 5 minutes when all this is ready to chopped, and we'll go to the next bit. All right, see you in a bit. Okay, we are back after doing some frantic chopping. Got some carrots here, got some leeks and some celery, got some cabbage. In the pot here, I've got a couple of things that need a bit of parboil, just to make them a bit more softer when they're in the stew. So I've got some sprouts here that I've chopped the ends off and put a little cross on the end there just to help them cook through. And I've got a turnip here. There's quite a lot of it actually when I've chopped it all up, but I'll probably use that in a soup tomorrow. Now, I did have some fresh herbs. I had some fresh rosemary, couldn't find any thyme, couldn't even find any dried thyme, unfortunately, so I had to use some oregano or oregano and some coriander. Just going to use a little bit of that. I've got some vegetable bouillon there, which I'm going to use for my stock, but to be honest, a lot of the time I just use these, and these are just vegetable stock cubes that I got in Aldi for about 50p. And I'm going to hoy in a little bit of tomato puree just to give it that little tomatoey taste. So all I've got left to do is chop up an onion, chop up some garlic, and Bob's your father's brother. All right, I'll see you in a bit. Bye. Hi and welcome back. Okay, we're about to start prepping. We've done all the prepping, so we're about to start putting it all together. So in here, cameraman, have a little look in there if you don't mind. Bring your camera over. In here, I'm just adding a little bit of olive oil, and in there I've got a nice onion and some garlic. Okay. Right, so I'll just put this onto a heat. Now while that's cooking, at the back there, as I showed you earlier, I've got the sprouts and the turnips just cooking away, but underneath there, I've got my potatoes cooking in there, which is great, and that will just bubble along as I'm starting to do the rest. Okay, so just while that onion is just starting to cook a little bit, I'm just going to make up the stock. So I've put 2 spoons full of the vegetable bouillon in, and I'll get my trusty whisk and give it a scooch around in there. Scooch around is a technical term in cooking, honestly. So we'll just keep going, and that can just sit there for a little bit. Now what we don't want to do here is we don't want to burn the onion too much, so we're going to just let it cook through gently. Get a wooden spoon, keep it moving. The trick is to keep it moving. Coat all the onion and garlic in some lovely olive oil, it likes that. Maybe just put a tiny little pinch of salt in there, just to keep it going. Okay, and then we're going to just leave that down there for a second and happy days. So while that's doing that, what I'll do is I'll just chop up a bit of the rosemary. Don't need those anymore. Now, I'd like to say that this rosemary is fresh out of the garden, but A, that would be a lie, and B, I haven't got a garden. So it came fresh from Aldi, I believe, and it cost all of about 40p. So that was fine. I should point out that everything in here is pretty cheap. The vegetables, etc., the stock, everything probably cost me less than £5 for all of this stuff, and things like the like the lentils and things, you buy them in a massive packet and they last for ages anyway. But all of this stuff is pretty straightforward, and again, you know, when you cook, and I was the same when I started cooking, I got quite nervous and quite worried that I was going to get it wrong, but it doesn't really matter if you get it wrong. And the thing is with vegetables, unless you fall asleep and forget about them and you don't actually cook them properly, well then they are going to go wrong, but it's pretty straightforward. So here, if you can just see what I'm doing here, I'm just taking a knife and just cutting up and chopping up the rosemary, so when we actually eat it later on, it doesn't stick in your mouth. It's pretty straightforward. Have you got that, cameraman?
Mm-hmm.
Now the cameraman is my youngest child, who is watching in anticipation because this is his dinner that he's eating.
Hello there.
Right, okay, so if we can come backwards. Now that is now nicely browned, so I'm going to put that down, and now I'm going to just hoy everything else in. So I've put in the celery, the green beans and the leeks, the cabbage, carrots, oh, this one, and give that a little bit of a stir. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And then I'm going to take a little bit of the tomato puree, just hoy about, I don't know, about 2 tablespoons of that, I reckon.
Okay.
Get a spoon. I reckon I'm going to need about a teaspoon of oregano, or oregano, however way you want to pronounce it. A little bit of coriander, not much, because, and the reason I'm only putting a little bit in is because normally I would use fresh coriander, but I couldn't get any. And dried coriander can sometimes be a bit too strong. So I'm just putting that in and just giving it a little stir around, okay? Are we all good with that so far?
Yeah.
Yes, we are. So I'm now going to take my lovely pile of fresh rosemary, hoy that in. Job done. Okay, we are definitely getting there. So we'll just keep stirring that. Now what I'm going to do now is take my stock. I've got a litre here. I'm going to put another half a litre in. I'm going to put that in. And now what I need to do is I need to put in the lentils. So lentils are over here. Here's the lentils. So what we need to do with lentils though is we need to give them a bit of a wash. So get them under the tap, just give them a little rinse. Okay?
Okay.
And then they're going in. And give that a stir.
They're looking very, very red, but I'm sure they look cool at the end.
Says the professional culinary critic there. Right, that'll do for now, and we'll come back to you in a minute. Okay, and we are now coming to the end. So, after you saw me do the blending, this is what it looks like. It's been cooking for about half an hour now. It looks almost soup-like, I suppose, but it's got a bit more consistency to that. And done some mashed potato in there. Now, some people don't like leaving the skins on their mashed spuds, but I do. 2 reasons why: I just think it makes them taste better, and B, a lot of the goodness that you get in a potato is in the skin, so I'm all for putting it in there. So what we're going to do now is just serve up into a bowl. There are 3 of us in this house, and we are all pretty hungry monsters, so squidge it down a bit like that. We're not professionals, but we try not to make a mess. And then take your bowl. You can see I was clearly a waiter at some point in my life. Not at all. I am quite famous for making a mess. There we go. So that's the last instalment for this week of the Meadow Wellbeing Kitchen. We're spanking amazing recipe. So as usual on the YouTube channel, there will be the recipe, there will be the ingredients, and how you can contact us. Thanks very much for watching. Cheers. See you folks.